been, I would have dealt with it. Our coaching staff, we would have dealt with. These were our student athletes. A good coach puts the interest of his student athletes first. We would have dealt with it if we'd have known about anything that happened. If in fact there are victims, they deserve justice. There's an investigation going on. We're going to, I think, meet with them next week. We want the investigation to get to the truth. That's what we need here, is the truth.
All right, take a listen to DeSabato from one of the statements he made earlier this week.
I know Jim knew about what I call the deviant sexual atmosphere that we were exposed to.
How do you know?
Well, we all had conversations. Jim was more like a big brother than a coach. It was something that we would discuss on a regular basis, mainly with nervous banter, locker room banter.
Now there are five, at least five. One Politico is saying there's six. Where are these guys coming from?
Conversations in a locker room are a lot different than allegations of abuse or reported abuse to us. I mean, I've been around the sport of wrestling my entire life. Kids wrestling, junior high wrestling, high school wrestling, University of Wisconsin, coached at Ohio State. I got two boys who wrestled for the Badgers. I got four nephews who wrestled at Ohio State, another nephew who wrestles for Iowa. Conversations in a locker room are a lot different than people coming up and talking about abuse. No one ever reported any abuse to me. If they had, I would have dealt with it. And what bothers me the most is the guys that are saying this thing, I know they know the truth. I know they do. Dunyashi Yet, he wrestled for. We trained with these guys every day, sometimes twice a day, and for I know what they're saying. I know they know what they're saying is not accurate.
So what do you think the motivation is then? You'd
have to ask them. But I will tell you, with Mike DeSabato, Mike DeSabato has a vendetta against Ohio State. He lost a licensing agreement with Ohio State. He is out to get Ohio State. He has a vendetta against our family. He was arrested just 5 months ago, threatening Chris Spielman's lawyer. And Chris Spielman, he's got all kinds of lawsuits against him. And what bothers me more than that is the fact that CNN puts him on TV 3 times in one day. I mean, if they would have done their homework instead of rushing to put someone on TV who's had a criminal record, all kinds of lawsuits against him, saying these kind of false things, and waited for to get the real facts about this guy's background.
Okay, but you know there are others. You know, it's not just him. Now there are five. The Wall Street Journal talked to the former UFC world champion, Mark Coleman, who says he has an affinity for you, likes you a lot. But he says, quote, there's no way, unless he's got dementia or something, that he's got no recollection of what was going on at Ohio State. I have nothing but respect for this man. I love this man. But he knew as far as I'm concerned.
I feel sorry for Mark Coleman. Mark Coleman wrestled for us, was a national champ, and then was one of our coaches for several years. That it's just not accurate. There is there never was abuse reported to me, and if there was, we'd have dealt with it.
Sean Daly, former Ohio State wrestler. I participated with Jimmy and other wrestlers in the locker room talk about Strauss. We all did. It was very common knowledge in the locker room that if you went to Dr. Strauss for anything, you would have to pull down your pants. It goes on to say that you had said something like, if they tried to do that for a thumb injury, I would kill him.
Not true. Did not say it.
All right, but let me ask you, Congressman, you've got these guys that are now on the record. Somebody reading this from outside, what do you say to them? What is driving these guys to say this now?
Yeah, you'd have to ask them. I think the timing is suspect from when you think about how this whole story came together after the Rosenstein interview or hearing with this whole talk about the speaker's race, but it is just not accurate. And as I said before, there's conversations in the locker room are a lot different than someone coming up to you and saying there was some kind of abuse. If there had been that, we would have dealt with it. Coach Hellickson would have dealt with it. Our entire coaching staff, we had 5 coaches, we'd have dealt with it. These student athletes.
So did you hear it in the locker room?
No. No type of abuse. We did not hear that. Because if we had, we would have dealt with it.
Something short of abuse that may be considered abuse now in this current time?
Did not. And again, that's the part that bugs me the most, is these guys, you invest so much time with them. I remember Dunyashi Yet competing, and just, I remember in the Big Ten semifinals, this guy in a match where he was in a situation where he was getting hurt and going out on the mat and helping this guy when it happened. It's so frustrating.
I will say you have a number of people coming out who support you, who say they believe you, people who worked there, people, a widow of a fallen Marine who had bad experience
Ray Mendoza wrestled for us. Mike DeSabato helped establish this fund, a memorial fund for Ray, who gave his life for our country as a Marine in Iraq. I was at the first event, spoke at that event with Coach Hellickson and Coach Trussell. And Karen Mendoza, Ray's widow, had to shut that event down, had to shut that fund down because of Mike couldn't account where the money was going. Had to go to the Attorney General to shut that down. To use a veteran, a Marine who gave his life for our country, to use that as a way for personal gain is as wrong as it gets. And this is the guy that the media puts on TV 3 times in one day to make all these false statements without going back and checking the fact that he's in financial distress and has a criminal record. It is just
Well, we're going to try to follow up and have tried to reach out to him as well. I heard you yesterday, I think, talk about the law firm that's involved in this investigation. It is the same law firm you mentioned that dealt with the dossier that you are obviously dealing with.
Yes.
And are you suggesting that this is some sort of conspiracy?
No, I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is they said they reached out to us. They sent it to a non-existent email address. So think about
this. This is Perkins and Coie.
Perkins Coie, Hillary Clinton's law firm. So the same law firm that can find an ex-British spy to put together a dossier to go after President Trump can't find a congressman's email address, can't get a hold of me, and then they tell the press, we reached out to him, he didn't respond. That is just complete bogus. And I mean, Brett, when we have one of these hearings in Congress, I tell you one thing, every liberal in the country seems to be able to find our phone number and find our address and call us up. But this law firm who's supposedly doing this investigation couldn't find that.
You didn't receive an email from them?
We did not.
You didn't receive any contact from them?
They have not contacted. Now, they've been in contact with us since they said that, and we're going to sit down with them. We want to get to the truth. If there were people who were abused, they deserve justice. But what has been said about me is completely false. And it's been said by one individual who spent 18 months in prison for fraud, another individual who has this vendetta against Ohio State, who was bilking a fallen Marines fund, who has numerous lawsuits and was arrested. That's the kind of guy the press puts on TV.
Just to be clear, for the guys who have also come out, Mark Coleman, Sean Daly, who said he was groped a half-dozen times by Dr. Richard Strauss, you don't know their motivation.
I don't, but what I'm telling you is it's not true, what they said about me.
And as you know in these stories, what happens is a lot of things start coming out. Politico has just moved a story saying that there were voyeurs in a hall, a building that housed the athletic teams, and that the head coach, Russ Hellickson, would at times have to physically drag these gawkers out because they were looking at your wrestlers showering and doing various things, and that you, as the number 2, would do that as well. Is that true?
I never drug anyone out. I will tell you, our